Every single day you delay planting in March, a crucial harvest opportunity vanishes permanently, not just shrinks, but closes. These 13 vegetables possess an innate biological deadline that no amount of diligent effort, supplemental nutrition, or meticulous hydration can extend once it has passed. Should you miss this window, your garden plots will remain unproductive while you incur actual expenses at the market for produce you could have cultivated yourself. Here are the 13. Let us proceed. Immediately share your USDA hardiness zone in the comments section. Whether you are in Zone 3, Zone 5, Zone 7, or Zone 9, wherever you are cultivating this March, please indicate it below. I meticulously review every single comment on this channel and am eager to observe precisely where our community is sowing seeds. And if you have never before subscribed, this is the content that should prompt you to make that decision right now. Each week, I release information that is precisely like this, tailored to specific zones, grounded in biological principles, and formulated around what your plants are actually doing beneath the soil surface, rather than offering generic advice that sounds appealing but fails to enhance your food production. Please activate that subscribe button before we move on. It comes at no cost whatsoever and will ensure you never again miss a planting period simply due to a lack of awareness that it was closing. Vegetable number 1, snap peas. Snap peas thrive and yield superior quality produce in cold, somewhat challenging soil conditions compared to any other environment available to them. This phenomenon is rooted in plant chemistry, and comprehending it fundamentally alters your understanding of optimal planting times. When snap peas develop in cool soil, typically between 40 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit, the plant strategically directs its energy toward producing sugars within the pods. This sugar content is what imparts the characteristic sweetness, that delightful crispness when you bite into them, and a flavor that is utterly unmatched by anything procurable at any price in any establishment anywhere. Conversely, observe what transpires when soil temperatures ascend beyond 75 degrees Fahrenheit during the pod development phase. The plant then shifts its metabolic focus, converting these sugars into starches. This is a deliberate biological adaptation, redirecting energy towards seed maturation rather than the sweet, tender pods you are anticipating harvesting. The outcome is pods that are tough, fibrous, starchy, and bitter, not merely a little less sweet, but fundamentally altered at the cellular level in a way that cannot be reversed. This is precisely why the calendar holds more significance than the weather forecast for snap peas. A fleeting week of warm weather in April will not yield superior peas, rather, it signals the incipient decline of your pea growing season. These should be sown directly into the ground. Never attempt to start snap peas indoors for transplanting. Peas form crucial symbiotic relationships with soil microorganisms during germination. Any disruption to these roots through transplanting will impede the plant's progress by 2 to 3 weeks. Introduce seeds approximately 1 inch deep, spaced 2 inches apart, along any available vertical support structure. Whether it's a fence, a wire trellis, or bamboo stakes, snap peas possess the inherent ability to find and ascend supports independently. For zones 3, 4, and 5, commence planting as soon as the soil can be worked in March, even if frost is still anticipated. A light frost poses no threat to established seedlings. For zones 6, 7, 8, and 9, mid to late February actually presents a more advantageous planting timeframe. If you are situated in the southern regions or along the Pacific coast and are observing this in March, you might already be approaching the latter end of your optimal planting window. Aim to get them into the ground this week. Here is an often overlooked advantage that most gardeners fail to utilize: snap peas are nitrogen fixers. Their roots contribute between 50 and 150 pounds of readily available nitrogen per acre to your soil over the course of a single growing season. Whatever vegetables you choose to plant after your snap pea harvest, be it tomatoes, peppers, or squash, will directly benefit from this replenished nitrogen reserve. One planting yields 2 seasons of advantage. The prevalent error is the inclination to await a comfortably warm day for planting. By the time March's weather feels conducive to gardening in most zones, the soil temperature has already surpassed the optimal range for snap peas. Plant while you are still wearing outerwear, while the soil feels cool to the touch when you insert your finger. This sensation of discomfort is not an indicator of unfavorable conditions, it signifies the precise environment required. Vegetable number 2, spinach. Spinach is not a spring crop, it is a late winter vegetable. Gardeners who achieve the most abundant spinach yields treated with this understanding, sowing seeds in late February and early March while others are still contemplating their gardening plans. Spinach's tendency to bolt, prematurely flower and seed, is triggered by two simultaneous factors: rising soil temperatures and increasingly longer daylight hours. When soil consistently exceeds 75 degrees Fahrenheit and the days extend beyond a certain duration, the spinach plant receives an urgent reproductive signal. It then diverts all its biological energy toward seed production. This transition is remarkably swift. A spinach plant can shift from producing lush, harvestable leaves to developing a 2-foot seed stalk in under 10 days once the bolting process is initiated. Every leaf turns bitter concurrently, not gradually, it is an all-at-once occurrence. Your entire spinach harvest period, from germination to the final cutting, must be concluded before this confluence of elevated temperature and extended day length arrives. In Zone 6 and warmer, this effective growing window can be as brief as 6 to 8 weeks from a March planting. Every day you postpone planting diminishes this already constrained timeframe. Disperse seeds in shallow rows, no deeper than 1/4 inch. Spinach seeds sown at excessive depths exhibit a significantly reduced germination rate. Maintain consistent moisture in the seedbed from the moment of sowing until germination is complete. Spinach germination will fail entirely if the seedbed dries out even once during the 7 to 14-day germination period. This represents the most common technical impediment to successful spinach cultivation and is entirely preventable with a single daily check of soil moisture. Once seedlings display their first true leaves, thin them to stand 3 inches apart. These thinnings constitute your initial harvest, tender, mild, perfectly edible baby greens that transition directly from your garden to your salad bowl. You are simultaneously thinning and harvesting. For zones 3, 4, and 5, plant the moment the soil is workable in March. Spinach seedlings can withstand frost down to the mid-20s Fahrenheit. For zones 6 and 7, planting should occur this week, not next. For zones 8 and 9, late February was your more advantageous planting time. Plant immediately and consider utilizing shade cloth to prolong the cool soil period. Here is a detail that will fundamentally alter your perception of spinach. The faintly metallic, somewhat chemical aftertaste often found in commercially bagged spinach is entirely absent in leaves harvested and consumed on the same day. That peculiar flavor is a result of cellular degradation and oxidation that commences the instant a leaf is severed and intensifies through days of storage and refrigeration. A spinach leaf plucked from your garden 20 minutes prior to dinner possesses a flavor profile entirely distinct from anything found in any plastic container at any price point. That profound difference is exclusively accessible to the gardener who planted in March. If you desire the remainder of this list, subscribe without delay. Gardeners who subscribed to this channel months ago already have access to every seasonal timing video. You can obtain all of it starting today. Click subscribe. Do not hesitate. Vegetable number 3, lettuce. This is how the majority of gardeners approach lettuce cultivation. They open a seed packet, plant everything simultaneously, observe beautiful germination, and then spend 3 weeks in late spring desperately attempting to distribute armloads of bolting lettuce heads to increasingly reluctant acquaintances. 50 heads maturing at the same time create a surplus far exceeding any household's consumption capacity. By the time the last heads are ready for harvest, the initial ones have already bolted and turned bitter. This is not a deficiency of the lettuce itself, it is a flaw in the planting strategy, and the solution is straightforward: succession planting. Sow a short row every 2 weeks throughout March, not one large planting, but a series of smaller sowings spaced 2 weeks apart. Your initial March planting will be ready in late April. Your second in early May. Your third in mid-May. Instead of an overwhelming single delivery of lettuce, you will have a continuous harvest assembly line providing precisely what you need over a 6 to 8 week period. Sow seeds 1/4 inch deep, no deeper. Lettuce seeds require light for proper germination, and burying them too deeply is a frequent cause of germination failure. Thin seedlings to 6 inches apart for heading varieties, and 3 inches for looseleaf types, once they reach 2 inches in height. Employ the cut-and-come-again harvesting method for looseleaf varieties such as Blackseed Simpson, Oakleaf, Red Sails, and Buttercrunch. Harvest only the outer leaves using sharp scissors, cutting at the base, and always leaving the central growing crown entirely undisturbed. This crown serves as the plant's primary engine. Every outer leaf you harvest signals the crown to produce more. A single plant managed in this manner will yield continuously for 8 to 12 weeks, as opposed to the single harvest obtained from pulling the entire head. For zones 3, 4, and 5, commence the first succession planting in the first week of March, the second 2 weeks later, and the third by March 31st. For zones 6 and 7, your initial succession planting should already be in the ground. If you are watching this in mid-March in Zone 6, plant today. For zones 8, 9, and 10, late February represented your ideal commencement time. March planting in warmer zones necessitates afternoon shade cloth to mitigate premature bolting as temperatures rise. The misconception lies in applying the principle of abundance at an inappropriate moment. Planting all 500 seeds from a packet on a single Saturday in March will result in you composting perfectly good lettuce in June. Instead, sow them in 5 successive short rows spread across March, and you will still be harvesting fresh greens in late May, while your neighbors are purchasing $6 clamshells of spring mix that wilt by the following day. Vegetable number 4, radishes. Every other vegetable on this list requires something from you: patience, meticulous soil preparation, or weeks of waiting. This particular crop demands almost nothing and delivers faster than any other food crop accessible to the home gardener. 22 to 30 days from seed to harvest, that is barely a month. And the flavor derived from cool March soil, crisp, mildly spicy with a clean snap, is so profoundly different from store-bought radishes that many individuals who grow them for the first time believe they have planted an entirely different vegetable. This is the biological explanation for why March-planted radishes are superior. Roots develop their characteristic crispness in cool soil, typically between 45 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit. This temperature range promotes the cell density that creates the satisfying snap. When temperatures exceed 65 degrees Fahrenheit, radish roots develop more rapidly, but their cell walls are less dense, resulting in a pithy, hollow interior and a sharp, unpleasant heat that completely overwhelms the flavor. Plant seeds 1/2 inch deep, spaced 1 inch apart, in any reasonably well-drained soil. They germinate in 3 to 5 days when soil temperatures are above 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Implement succession planting by sowing a new short row every 10 days throughout March. This strategy staggers your harvest, ensuring you are consistently pulling perfectly sized radishes rather than dealing with 50 ready simultaneously. Radishes serve as exceptional marker crops. If you are planting slow germinating seeds in March, particularly carrots and parsnips, which require 10 to 21 days to show any visible growth, sow radishes in the same row concurrently. The radishes will germinate in 3 to 5 days and clearly delineate the entire row, preventing accidental destruction of carrot rows that might appear as bare soil. The radishes will be harvested long before the carrots require that space. This represents 2 tasks accomplished with a single planting, yielding a harvest spanning 3 weeks. The oversight that costs gardeners the entire quality of their harvest is leaving radishes in the ground beyond their optimal harvest window due to competing garden tasks. An additional 10 days in warming soil transforms a perfect radish into a woody, pithy, hollow root with a heat so intense it is genuinely unpleasant. Monitor your radish beds every 2 to 3 days once you approach the 20-day mark from planting. Harvest them the moment the shoulder protrudes above the soil surface and the tops are approximately marble to golf ball sized. This optimal window remains open for about a week in cool March soil. Do not miss it. This is the foundation upon which this channel is built, providing you with information that elucidates what is actually occurring in your soil, not merely what actions to take, but why they are effective and what leads to failure when they are not. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so immediately. Join thousands of gardeners across the United States who return to this channel weekly because it consistently delivers valuable, actionable information. Vegetable number 5, carrots. Carrots planted in March develop fundamentally superior flavor profiles compared to those planted at any other time. Carrots achieve their flavor through a gradual process in cool soil, a feat that cannot be replicated in warmer conditions. When roots develop slowly in soil temperatures ranging between 45 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit, the plant produces higher concentrations of natural sugars, and the cellular structure develops the density that yields the satisfying crunch of a truly exceptional carrot. This is a crucial detail that most gardeners are unaware of. Carrots that experience frost exposure after their roots have begun to form undergo a documented flavor transformation. Cold temperatures trigger the plant to convert stored starches into sugars as a natural antifreeze mechanism. The root becomes measurably, chemically sweeter due to the frost, not in spite of it. This precisely explains why grocery store carrots lack flavor. They are cultivated in climate-controlled environments that never induce this sugar conversion. The sweetest carrot you will ever taste is a March-planted, frost-kissed carrot harvested from your own garden in late May or June. That unparalleled flavor is simply not available for purchase anywhere. This is the technique that resolves the most common carrot cultivation issue. Carrot seeds are exceptionally small. Standard sowing practices often result in clusters of 10 seedlings in one spot, with bare soil just a few inches away. To mitigate this, mix your carrot seeds with dry sand or used coffee grounds before sowing. Use approximately 2 to 3 tablespoons of sand per seed packet, mix thoroughly, and then sow the mixture. The sand aids in distributing seeds more evenly throughout the row, significantly reducing clumping. This single adjustment incurs no cost and takes merely 30 seconds. Sow the mixture 1/4 inch deep in the loosest, most rock-free soil you can find. Carrots tend to fork and twist around any physical obstruction during root development. Even a pebble the size of a marble or a small clump of clay can cause a forked root, a fate determined by what was present in your soil back in March. If your soil is heavy clay or rocky, opt for shorter varieties like Parisian or Chantenay, which only develop roots that are 2 to 4 inches in length. Maintain consistent moisture in the seedbed for the entire 10 to 14 day germination period. Carrot seeds that dry out even once during this timeframe will fail to germinate completely. Thin seedlings rigorously to 2 inches apart when they reach 2 inches in height. While this may seem wasteful, it is essential. Overcrowded carrots will produce thin, misshapen roots regardless of any other correct practices you employ. For zones 3, 4, and 5, direct sow from mid-March through early April, once the soil is workable to a depth of 8 inches. For zones 6, 7, and 8, plant from early to mid-March. For zones 9 and 10, late February was your more advantageous planting time. Vegetable number 6, onions. Onions are a crop highly sensitive to day length, not primarily temperature. Their growth response is dictated by the number of daylight hours per day, which signals them when to cease leaf production and begin forming the underground bulb you are ultimately seeking to cultivate. Long-day varieties require 14 to 16 hours of daylight to initiate bulbing and are best suited for northern gardens, typically zones 3 through 6. Short-day varieties trigger bulbing at 10 to 12 hours of daylight and are recommended for southern gardens, zones 7 through 10. Planting the incorrect type for your specific zone can result in the plant initiating bulbing when the bulb is still diminutive, or never bulbing at all, irrespective of how long you wait. This single factor accounts for a significant proportion of all onion cultivation failures in home gardens across America, and it is rarely clearly stated on the packaging. For zones 3 through 5, long-day varieties such as Capra and Stuttgarter are proven performers. For zones 6 and 7, opt for intermediate varieties that trigger bulbing at 12 to 14 hours of daylight. For zones 8, 9, and 10, short-day varieties are the only suitable choice, including Candy, Georgia Sweet, and Texas Early Grano. Insert each onion set into loose, well-prepared soil until only the papery tip is visible above the ground level. Do not bury them completely, nor should they be half-submerged. The tip, just the very apex, should be observable on the surface. Full sun is mandatory, requiring a minimum of 6 hours of direct daily sunlight, otherwise, the plant will dedicate all its energy to producing green tops instead of developing the underground bulb. Space sets 4 inches apart. This represents a hidden harvest that most gardeners completely overlook. The green tops that emerge within 1 to 2 weeks of planting are entirely edible at all stages of their development. You can harvest fresh green onions, essentially scallions, throughout the spring while awaiting the main bulb harvest. This provides 2 distinct harvests from a single planting, fresh green onions from April through June, followed by the full bulb harvest in July. The critical error that dooms onion plantings before they even begin is inserting the sets too deeply into the soil. Burying them completely traps moisture against the crown, significantly increasing the risk of rot before the roots can establish. The visibility of the tip is not merely aesthetic, it is functional, determining the difference between a set that successfully establishes and one that rots in the ground. Vegetable number 7, broccoli. The majority of American gardeners harvest broccoli once, remove the entire plant, and forfeit weeks of additional, free harvest that the plant was actively prepared to provide each season without their knowledge. After the central head is harvested, the plant does not perish. Instead, it redirects all its remaining energy toward developing side shoots. These are smaller, yet fully edible florets that continue to form along the main stem for 4 to 8 weeks after the central head has been removed. A single broccoli plant transplanted in March, when managed correctly, can produce from late spring continuously through early summer without requiring any additional planting. Here is the critical timing detail that dictates success. Broccoli transplanted into cool March soil, ideally between 45 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit, establishes a deep, extensive root system before the main growth phase commences. This robust root system supports both the development of the central head and the subsequent production of side shoots. Transplants established in warmer April soil bypass this crucial cool soil root development stage entirely and rapidly advance to head production, often resulting in buttoning. This phenomenon involves the premature formation of tiny crowns that bolt to flower within days of their appearance, yielding a golf ball-sized head that opens into yellow flowers before it can ever be harvested. This failure to develop properly is almost entirely a timing issue, occurring in April for gardeners who should have transplanted in March. Transplant seedlings on a cloudy day or in the evening. Plant them deeply, burying the stem up to the first set of true leaves. Broccoli develops additional roots along any buried stem length, making deep planting a significant advantage. Space transplants 18 inches apart. Water them with half-strength liquid fertilizer immediately after transplanting. After you cut the central head, do so with a sharp knife, leaving the main stem and all side growth completely intact. Leave the plant undisturbed for 2 weeks. New side shoots will begin to form along the stem. Harvest them individually when they reach 2 to 3 inches in diameter, before the individual florets start to separate and open. For zones 3, 4, and 5, transplant from late March to early April, approximately 4 to 6 weeks prior to the last expected frost. For zones 6 and 7, plant from mid to late March. For zones 8, 9, and 10, transplanting in late February yields significantly superior results. If you are in a warm climate and are viewing this in March, transplant immediately. Vegetable number 8, beets. Every beet planting you undertake in March provides you with 2 entirely separate harvests. Most American gardeners are aware of only one of these. The other is discarded and composted each season by gardeners who are unaware of its existence. Each beet seed is not a singular seed, it is a dried fruit cluster containing 2 to 4 actual seeds compressed together. Multiple seedlings emerge from each sowing point. These thinnings are beet greens, a genuinely nutritious and delicious vegetable that most Americans have never tasted because grocery stores remove them before sale. They contain more iron per serving than an equivalent portion of beef, more calcium per calorie than milk, and significant concentrations of vitamins K, A, and C. Those thinnings are harvested and go directly from your garden to your salad bowl or sauté pan. Not a single one needs to be composted. The scientific principles underpinning flavor development explain why planting in March holds such significance. A particular substance, geosmin, is responsible for the distinct earthy aroma characteristic of beets. The concentration of geosmin escalates under heat stress. Roots cultivated in soil that consistently remains above 75 degrees Fahrenheit produce an intensely earthy taste, leading some to perceive beets as tasting like dirt. Conversely, beets sown in March and allowed to grow on the cooler soil of spring yield a sweeter, more harmonious, and nuanced flavor. These are precisely the beets that can win over individuals who previously believed they disliked them. A crucial factor that sabotages more beet harvests than any other single element is the soil's pH level. Beets thrive in a pH range between 6.5 and 7.5. In soil with a pH below 6.0, a condition prevalent in a substantial portion of eastern United States garden soils, beet roots will remain underdeveloped, irrespective of any other successful cultivation practices employed. It is imperative to test your soil's pH before embarking on beet cultivation. A fundamental soil testing kit is available at any garden supply store for $12. Should your soil's pH fall below 6.5, incorporate garden lime or wood ash into the planting bed 2 to 3 weeks prior to sowing. Plant seed clusters 1 inch deep and 1 inch apart. Once seedlings attain a height of 3 to 4 inches, thin them to stand 3 inches apart, and incorporate these thinnings directly into your meals. For cultivation zones 3, 4, and 5, direct sowing should occur from mid-March through April, once the soil temperature reaches 50 degrees Fahrenheit. In zones 6, 7, and 8, the optimal planting window is early March. For zones 9 and 10, aim for late February to early March. Gardeners in warmer climates who sow beets in mid to late March run the risk of encountering heat stress during the critical final stage of root development, which dictates both the size and flavor quality of the harvest. Vegetable number 9, Swiss chard. Cultivating Swiss chard in March provides a continuous harvest from late spring through summer and into autumn, and in zones 6 and warmer, even into winter. A single planting yields 6 to 8 months of productivity from a mere afternoon's work in March. The underlying reason chard excels in this regard, unlike spinach and lettuce, lies in a singular biological trait: chard is resistant to bolting in heat. As summer arrives and other spring greens begin to send up seed stalks and develop a bitter taste, chard continues to produce leaves consistently, thriving under conditions that spell the end for every other green on this list. The March planting window for chard is designed to allow it sufficient time to establish in cool soil, thereby fostering a robust and resilient root system that sustains 6 to 8 months of continuous yield. Chard planted in March possesses well-established deep roots before the onset of summer. Chard planted later in the season never develops this crucial foundation and consequently underperforms. Sow seeds directly 1 inch deep and 6 inches apart. Thin to one plant per location once seedlings reach 2 inches in height. The thinnings are edible, possessing a mild, tender quality as baby greens that can be immediately utilized in the kitchen. The method of harvesting dictates whether your chard plant will produce for 6 weeks or 6 months. Commence harvesting when the outer stems reach 8 to 10 inches in length. Sever each stem at its base, as close to the soil surface as possible without causing injury to the central growth crown. This crown is the plant's vital engine. Any damage to it will halt production. Protect it, and it will continue to generate new leaves from its center every 5 to 7 days in cooler weather, and every 10 to 14 days during the heat of summer. Agricultural extension research indicates that a single, well-maintained chard plant can yield over 10 pounds of produce. For a late March planting, anticipate your initial harvest in late May. The plant will continue to produce throughout the summer and into the fall, with its flavor enhancing as temperatures decline in September and October. For zones 6, 7, and 8, the ideal planting period is early to mid-March. For zones 9 and 10, late February to early March presents a more advantageous window. The common error is treating chard akin to lettuce, cutting it back to a mere stub or discarding the plant after a few harvests due to apparent depletion. A chard plant cut back to 3 or 4 inches appears finished, but it is merely preparing for its next growth cycle from the protected center. Always preserve the crown. This is the singular secret to chard's productivity. If you have watched this far and have not yet subscribed, consider this direct appeal. For how many more seasons will you acquire such detailed information from a single video, only to be unable to access the subsequent installment? This channel releases content weekly, meticulously crafted at this precise level of detail. Subscribe immediately. It incurs no cost and grants you access to every video that follows. Take action and press that button now. Vegetable number 10, kale. For 15 years, kale has been simultaneously lauded by the health food community and overlooked by home gardeners who, after a single attempt at cultivation, harvested improperly, experienced an unpalatable result, and never attempted it again. Both perspectives fail to grasp kale's true potential when planted in March and harvested correctly. Kale is a biennial, meaning its complete life cycle spans 2 years. During its first year, it lacks any inherent biological imperative to bolt, nor is it driven by reproductive pressure towards seed production. This characteristic makes it one of the most consistently productive leafy greens available in temperate climates. It continues to grow from the same plant, month after month, from your March sowing through the subsequent winter. This is the flavor nuance that eludes most individuals who believe they dislike kale. Kale harvested after exposure to frost possesses a fundamentally different taste profile compared to kale harvested during the summer heat. The same starch-to-sugar conversion that imparts sweetness to March-planted carrots occurs in kale leaves as temperatures decrease. The bitterness that renders oversized summer kale virtually unpalatable transforms into a deep, complex, almost sweet earthiness in frost-touched October and November leaves from the same plant you established in March. Your March-planted kale reaches its flavor zenith approximately 6 to 7 months after being sown. Begin harvesting when the outer leaves reach 6 to 8 inches in length, not 10 or 12 inches. At this size, the leaves are tender, the flavor is mild, and the texture is sufficiently pleasant to be acceptable even to those who profess a dislike for kale. Leaves permitted to grow beyond 10 to 12 inches develop a leathery texture and a concentrated bitterness that is genuinely unpleasant, regardless of preparation method. Always harvest from the bottom of the plant, working your way upward. Crucially, always leave the central growing crown completely intact. The outer leaves you are harvesting are the oldest, most mature leaves on the plant. Their removal redirects the plant's energy from maintaining older growth to fostering new development from the center. University extension research indicates that a single, well-managed kale plant can yield over 3 pounds of leaves throughout a growing season. For zones 3, 4, and 5, direct sowing or transplanting can occur in late March, with the first harvest expected in late May. For zones 6, 7, and 8, the optimal period is early to mid-March. For zones 9 and 10, kale is best treated as a fall and winter crop. Planting from late February to early March provides it with the necessary cool establishment window before the arrival of heat. The error lies in harvesting leaves that are excessively large, leading to the conclusion that one dislikes kale. The kale most commonly encountered in America is almost invariably harvested too late. Allow it one season with appropriate timing and harvesting techniques, and you will comprehend why it has sustained human populations through cold springs for millennia. Vegetable number 11, shelling peas. There are two categories of gardeners who cultivate shelling peas, those who plant them in March and those who regret not doing so. This statement is not an exaggeration. Shelling peas require a significant period for pod development, a duration that often surprises gardeners. They are entirely worth every moment of this effort when planted in March and harvested under the cool conditions of late spring. However, they are not worth the labor when planted in May and harvested amidst summer heat. Shell peas necessitate a longer period of cool soil development than snap peas to fully cultivate their characteristic sweetness and tender skins. Cool soil promotes a high sugar concentration in thin, tender skin, a combination that makes freshly shelled peas one of the most genuinely delightful produce-a-garden yields. Warm soil results in lower sugar content and thick, starchy skin, yielding peas that are mealy, bland, and not worth the time spent shelling them. No technique, variety, or fertilizer can compensate for this biological reality once the soil warms. This is a specific detail that most gardeners overlook, to the detriment of measurable yield reduction. Inoculate your pea seeds with Rhizobium bacteria powder before planting. This powder, available at any garden center for a minimal cost, contains the specific soil bacteria that form nitrogen-fixing nodules on pea roots. Inoculating seeds enhances nitrogen fixation effectiveness by 30 to 40% in most soil types. Increased nitrogen fixation leads to greater nitrogen deposition into your soil, benefiting subsequent crops and amplifying the already substantial fertility advantage of growing peas. Direct sow seeds 1 to 2 inches deep and 2 inches apart, along a sturdy vertical support. Shelling peas produce heavier pods than snap peas and require more robust support. Consider a trellis or fence equipped with horizontal wires at 6-inch intervals extending up to 5 feet in height. Some gardeners fail to utilize a valuable resource. Pea shoots, the tender growing tips of the vine, the uppermost 2 to 3 inches of stem, the youngest leaves, and curling tendrils are entirely harvestable throughout the season. They possess the concentrated essence of fresh pea flavor, excelling in salads, stir-fries, and can be eaten directly from the vine. Pinching the growing tip to harvest shoots actually stimulates lateral branching. The plant produces 2 new growing tips where one was removed, ultimately resulting in more flowering sites and an increased number of pods. Every pea planting simultaneously functions as a pea shoot planting if you recognize its potential. Never start shelling peas indoors. A directly sown pea seed in 45-degree soil will consistently outperform an indoor started transplant placed in the same soil 2 weeks later, without exception. For zones 3, 4, and 5, planting can commence as early as March 1st, provided the ground is workable. For zones 6, 7, 8, and 9, late February actually represents your optimal window. March planting in warmer zones may already be approaching the latter end of the cool soil development period, crucial for cultivating the flavor that makes shelling peas so worthwhile. Vegetable number 12, turnips. This is arguably the most overlooked, least planted, and most nutritionally underestimated crop in the American spring garden. Those who dismiss it base their judgment on a version of this vegetable they have never truly tasted. The turnip most Americans are familiar with has a sharp, peppery, slightly bitter, and starchy flavor profile. This taste is a consequence of two factors: heat stress during root development and weeks of cold storage post-harvest. This is not representative of how turnips actually taste when grown correctly and consumed fresh. A turnip planted in March, harvested from cool soil at a size ranging from golf ball to tennis ball, before the root develops a woody texture and the sharp, overwhelming heat that contributes to its undeserved negative reputation, tastes mild, slightly sweet, with a clean crunch that bears little resemblance to the grocery store variety. Here is the dual harvest that every turnip planting provides, which most gardeners completely waste. Turnip greens, the leafy tops, are available as an initial harvest 30 to 40 days after planting, whereas the roots require 50 to 60 days. These greens are not merely decorative, they are a genuinely nutritious vegetable, offering more calcium per serving than an equivalent volume of milk, a higher iron content than most spring leafy greens, and significant other nutrients. They have sustained Southern American families through challenging springs for centuries. Most northern gardeners plant turnips for their roots and discard the tops without a second thought, effectively forfeiting the first harvest entirely. Direct sow seeds half an inch deep, thinning to 4 inches apart when seedlings reach 2 to 3 inches in height. Begin harvesting outer leaves using the same cut and come again technique applicable to chard and kale. Harvest the roots when they reach golf ball to tennis ball size. A turnip larger than a tennis ball, in most varieties, will have developed a woody, fibrous texture and a sharp, overwhelming heat that contributes to its undeserved negative reputation. For zones 3, 4, and 5, direct sowing is recommended from mid to late March. Turnips are cold hardy and tolerant of frost at all growth stages. For zones 6 and 7, the optimal period is early to mid-March. For zones 8 and 9, aim for late February to early March. If you reside in a warm zone and are viewing this in mid-March, plant immediately. The mistake lies in misapplied patience, waiting for impressive size before harvesting. An additional 2 weeks in warming soil does not yield a larger, superior turnip. Instead, it produces a woody, sharp, unpleasant root that validates every negative assumption the individual harvesting it already held about turnips. Harvest them when they are small. Eat them fresh. Permanently alter your perception of this vegetable. Vegetable number 13, parsnips. Every vegetable on this list offers its reward within 3 weeks to 3 months after planting. This final entry requires a significantly longer wait. However, the reward at the end of this extended period surpasses anything produced by any other vegetable on this list, leading experienced gardeners to regard parsnips as the single most satisfying harvest of the entire gardening year. This is the taste of a properly cultivated March-planted parsnip, harvested after the initial autumn frosts in October or November. It is sweet, deeply, almost shockingly sweet. A nutty, complex, caramelized sweetness unlike any other vegetable flavor. It is the kind of sweetness that causes first-time parsnip growers to stand in their garden, soil on their hands, eating a raw root and marveling at its origin from their own soil. That particular flavor is unavailable in any grocery store across the United States. Commercial parsnips are harvested before frost exposure for logistical reasons related to storage and transportation, meaning they never undergo the flavor transformation that makes parsnips extraordinary. What you harvest from your March-planted garden after October frosts is categorically distinct from anything commercially available. Parsnip roots, at their full maturity, contain high concentrations of stored starch. When autumn soil temperatures consistently fall below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, particularly through repeated freeze-thaw cycles, the plant converts these starches into sugars as a natural antifreeze mechanism. The longer the roots are exposed to cold, through October, November, and into December, the more complete this conversion becomes. Parsnips left in the ground through winter in zones 5 through 8 can be harvested anytime the ground is not frozen solid, offering a 4-month harvest availability from a single March planting. Use only fresh seed. Parsnip seeds lose their viability more rapidly than those of almost any other vegetable. After 12 months of storage, germination rates can drop below 30%. After 18 months, they can fall below 15%. Gardeners who use seed from the previous year experience such sparse, patchy germination that they erroneously conclude parsnips are difficult to grow and cease trying. Parsnips are not inherently difficult to cultivate, it is old seed that creates this perception. Purchase fresh seed annually, without exception. Sow seeds 1/2 inch deep in deeply loosened, rock-free soil. Parsnip roots can reach 12 to 18 inches at maturity and require clear, unobstructed vertical growing space. Germination takes 14 to 21 days, the slowest of any vegetable on this list. Plant radishes alongside parsnip rows as marker crops. Radishes germinate in 3 to 5 days and clearly delineate the planting line, preventing accidental disturbance of the soil before the slow germinating parsnip seeds emerge. Maintain consistent moisture in the seedbed throughout the entire germination window. Thin seedlings to 3 to 4 inches apart when they reach 2 to 3 inches in height. From that point onward, parsnips require virtually no attention until autumn. Do not harvest before the first hard frosts. This is the timing that most gardeners err on, in the opposite direction from every other vegetable on this list. Instead of harvesting too late, they harvest parsnips too early. A parsnip harvested in September will be starchy and unremarkable. A parsnip harvested in October, after 2 hard frosts, is the yield that compels gardeners to plan the following year's parsnip bed before the current year's harvest is even complete. For zones 3, 4, and 5, direct sowing should occur between March 15th and April 1st. For zones 6 and 7, early to mid-March is ideal. For zones 8 and 9, late February presents a more advantageous window. Every additional week of establishment time is crucial. This is the core takeaway from this video, not a list, not a calendar, but a principle. The gardeners who consistently achieve the most abundant, most flavorful spring and early summer harvests are not inherently better gardeners. They do not possess superior soil or tools. They are simply willing to work in conditions that do not yet feel like typical gardening conditions. They plant snap peas while still wearing a jacket. They direct sow spinach in soil that feels excessively cold. They place parsnip seeds in the ground while their neighbors are still browsing seed catalogs. The most exceptional harvests do not stem from perfect timing. They arise from adequate timing, acted upon in March, amidst uncomfortable weather, in soil that feels incorrect, rather than perfect timing that arrives in May when it is already too late for half of the vegetables on this list. You now possess 13 vegetables with their precise biological deadlines. You understand what transpires in the soil at specific temperatures. You are aware of the hidden harvests that most gardeners discard. You know the mistakes made even before seeds are put into the ground. And you are familiar with the zone-specific timing applicable to your actual gardening location. If this video has provided you with a single piece of information you did not know before clicking on it, a biological mechanism that explains a past failure you never understood, a hidden harvest you were discarding, or a timing detail that will alter what you plant this week, subscribe to this channel immediately. Not at my behest, but because next March, you will want to be here for the April planting video, the May succession planting video, and every subsequent seasonal timing video. The gardeners who subscribed to this channel a year ago already have access to all of those. You can join them starting right now. Click subscribe. Return every week. Let us collaboratively cultivate a garden that yields genuine food in substantial quantities, under authentic American conditions, every single season. 2 questions before you conclude this video. First, which vegetable on this list surprised you the most? Was there one where the underlying biology of its timing was something you had genuinely never encountered before? Please share it in the comments. Second, have you ever experienced a crop failure in your garden and never understood the reason why? Perhaps spinach that bolted unexpectedly after appearing healthy. Onions that produced only tops. Carrots that emerged forked and twisted despite meticulous planting. Beets the size of marbles after months of anticipation. Describe what happened. Specify your zone. I read every single comment, and the failures people describe are frequently the very foundation upon which the next video is built. Your experience is valuable here. Please share it below. I will see you in the next one.